You just have to commit. Like, I think that's the other thing I tell people is like, if you want to do it, you have to do something every single day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if, yes, like maybe you don't finish your module or something like that, you at least did something every single day. Like, there can be no days off because that's when
Right.
you just start to forget stuff, at least for me.
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience Podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in today's episode, you're going to hear me talking to Katie. Now, Katie was somebody that I had in the coaching program, so I was able to work with her directly and see her incredible progress. Katie was one of the coaching clients that I honestly didn't really have to worry about. Once Nate and I worked with her and kind of showed her a few things to improve her studying, she honestly just took it and ran and did incredible with the exams. She scored high. She passed almost all of them first try, especially once she got her rhythm. And I think this is a great episode to show how changing habits and changing things to be more consistent can really give you different results, because that was a big thing that changed for Katie, was that she became super consistent, never missed any parts of the process. And again, the results were she passed all the exams with high scores and was even able to take a break for busy season. So I think this is going to be a great episode. I think you're going to love it. She has some great tips, some great strategies. Now, before we dive into the episode with Katie, I just want to give one more reminder about our Superfast CPA training webinar on SuperfastCPA.com. Again, that is 1 hour that will save you months and months of studying and failing exams. So make sure you check out that 1 hour webinar on SuperfastCPA.com. And one more thing that I want to point out is we also have Superfast CPA multiple choice question walkthrough videos on YouTube. Make sure you go check those out. I have been working on those over the past year, where I have been making multiple choice question walkthrough videos for just about every topic in FAR, just about every topic in audit. I've done a lot for Reg and TCP, and I'm currently working my way through BAR. So if you need extra help, or if you need help with a specific topic, make sure you check out our multiple choice question walkthrough videos. And if you like those, you can get the full versions of those if you become a Superfast CPA Pro member. So make sure you check that all out. Now, let's dive into the interview with Katie. All right. So it's great to have you on the call today, Katie. I have talked to you a little bit before, not just a little bit. We've talked over the coaching,
Yep.
but it's awesome to have you on the call today. Just wondering, where are you calling in from today?
From St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, Missouri. Okay.
Yeah.
I know one person from Missouri,
really?
and now I know you as well.
Yeah,
But it's great to have you on the call. Let's just dive into everything. So, as we're getting into this, just so people who are listening to this are aware, you were in the coaching program where, so Nate and I worked with you directly.
Yep.
But for the sake of this call, I'm going to kind of treat it like I don't know some of your story very much. So
Really.
let's just start from the beginning. Where were you at before you started wanting to get the CPA? Like, how did you get into accounting, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to Ole Miss for my undergrad degree and kind of went in, like, didn't really know what I wanted to do, like, was general business. And I was like, I guess I'll figure it out and figure out a way to kind of apply that. So had to just take an entry level accounting course and ended up being, I guess, pretty good at it. My mom's also in accounting, so it didn't really surprise me that it was something I was interested in, but ended up like changing my major, got my accounting degree from Ole Miss, and then I got my master's at Mizzou back here in Missouri. So just like the buildup of that accounting knowledge, I was like, okay, I think like sitting for the CPA is something I will ultimately want to do, just like unlock a lot of career opportunities, things like that. I ended up interning with Deloitte, who I'm still working for Deloitte now. It's been 4 years in the audit practice here.
Nice.
But interning with them, and public accounting, like they just push the CPA like heavily, and I mean, as they should. So I was just like, okay, like I think it's something I'm going to do. So in my master's year, I was like also doing classes, trying to study, working part-time at that point. And so I studied for FAR, did not pass. And I was like kind of crushed. I was just like, dang, like this is harder than I thought it was going to be. But it just ended up being like too much.
And just curious with doing FAR. So, you were doing too much at the time. And how did you study FAR? Like, did you get a review course? You just got Becker?
So Deloitte gave me Becker, which was like super awesome. But I just like, it's like, okay, I'm just going to like use the course and like do everything as the course says. And for me, like, I mean, studying for that first test, I was like, okay, I think I've got this. Like, I think this is like the way to go. And then I just sat for the exam and I was like, whoa, like I'm not
Yeah.
ready for this test. And like I came out
Yeah.
like not feeling well. And so like sure enough, I didn't pass. So I
Yeah.
from that point was very discouraged and took a huge break until I
Mhm.
was working full time at Deloitte. I was just kind of like, maybe the CPA thing's like just isn't for me. Like maybe it's
Mhm.
just not, and that's okay. But I've got great colleagues and friends at Deloitte who are like, no, you can so do this. Like, you need to push yourself. Don't give up. And I was just like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not going to sell myself short. Like, why would I do that? So I was like, but let me step back. I was like, I can't study the same way working full time. Like,
Right.
that just
Mhm.
will not work at all. Could barely do it while I was in school. So I was like, I've got to find something. I just started doing some research, and that's where I came across Superfast CPA. And so that
Okay.
kind of started the journey. But I know
Yeah,
it's
I was
long-winded.
curious. So you were studying with Becker, and were you basically just doing everything the normal way, like
Yep.
studying at night or
Videos,
and
yeah, at
doing
night,
videos?
videos, and then doing, multiple choice and things like that. But I just like, I was not retaining
Right.
anything. I think that's, in my opinion, I think the review course's biggest flaw is just that it's like so much information, but there's no re-review aspect until you're to
Mm-hmm.
the very end. And for me,
Right.
like, I guess I don't retain things like great, but like, it was just like, whoa, I forgot everything I just did the last 6 weeks. Like, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and I think a ton of people experience that exact
Hmm.
thing. And also I find that a lot of times you, especially for the first exam, you have that kind of false sense of security,
Yeah.
like, oh, I have Becker. I'm
Right.
doing everything Becker tells me to do. I
Hmm.
should pass. And
Exactly.
then, you go in and turns out you weren't prepared nearly as much as you thought.
Right.
Do you remember your score? I'm just curious
I
for
think
that
I
first FAR
got
exam.
a 67. And
Okay.
that was back
So
in like
not too bad,
2022.
not too
Yeah.
far, but way super
Yeah.
stressful
Oh,
just
yeah.
to get a 67.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, so
That was tough.
you took a break
Hmm.
after the 67 and you were done with your master's and everything at
Yep.
that point. And at what point, like what you were researching and you found Superfast CPA, was it through like YouTube or was it the website?
I
How did you
don't
find it?
remember. I think it was on YouTube. I saw a video of
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it was like the seminar, like a seminar, or just maybe like even almost like his like Nate's pitch of like the method. And then I
An
found like
ad.
the
Hmm.
website and started like
Yeah.
reading through everything. And at first I was just like, okay, like this sounds like really great, but I was like, I just want to make sure that like this is something people have used. And then I started like watching the podcasts and like
Hmm.
reading people's like experiences. And I think I even got access to like the forum and started reading there. And
Okay.
I was like,
Hmm.
oh
Yeah.
wow, like a lot of people are using this and like it's actually working. And so I just knew too, like, because I was like, okay, I could maybe learn the study method that like through those initial videos, but then I was like, no, like
Hmm.
I want something to hold me accountable and have resources to like if I do have questions or things like that from people who've actually done it. So that's really why I chose to go the coaching route versus just like
Right.
trying to figure out the method on my own. And I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. And it was awesome having you in the coaching program. And I guess just to make sure I'm remembering or
Yep.
understanding that right. So you got the bundle, the pro course or
Yes.
whatever,
Mhm.
but did you buy the coaching bundle pretty quickly after that? Like you didn't really do it without the coaching
I
or how
didn't
was
do
it?
it without the
Okay.
coaching because I just kind of told myself like if you're gonna do it, like we're gonna fully do it. And
You're
so
gonna do it
like
all.
let's
Okay.
just buy it because like then that's gonna hold me accountable. Like I've spent this money,
Right.
like we're gonna do it. And so I don't think if I would have pulled the trigger that I like would be really like where I'm at, like having
Hmm.
now finished them. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that I did it. And like I think there is too, and this could be wrong, but like there was something like, okay, if you don't pass in 2 years, there's,
There's
some
a
sort of like
guarantee.
money
Yeah.
back. And so I
Hmm.
was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like, worst case scenario, this just doesn't work, like, whatever. But I was just like, I had a feeling, I was like, okay, I think this is like for me, just because it was pointed towards people who were in my same scenario, like working full time or people who had
Hmm.
kids, things like that. So I
Yeah.
was pretty confident.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw you in the coaching program. You honestly have been one of the like gold star
Oh, thank
people in
you.
the coach. You did amazing.
Thanks.
So let's kind of talk about your process. So pretty much, I guess, and I hadn't quite remembered this, but pretty much you were working with Nate and I through
Hmm.
your whole study process besides that first FAR exam. So
Yep.
when you got the coaching program, what was it that either in the pro course or Nate and I said, or whatever the case was, what was it that started making a difference in your approach compared to when you were doing it the first time?
I think the first thing was just that like there's no videos, like we're actually going to like teach you how to like learn the material but in like a comprehensive way, because I
Mm-hmm.
was like I just never got much out of videos anyway, so I was like, okay, wait,
Mm-hmm.
like I can actually only study maybe a couple hours a day, but like I'm going to get a lot out of those 2 hours. And so I was a little weary at first because I was like, am I really going to grasp the concepts just from
Mm-hmm.
doing questions?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about that. But then, like, once I was like, I'm just going to try it. And then was like reading, like, when you get them wrong, you learn from like that
Mm-hmm.
little box.
Yes.
So, I mean, it really started to work. And then the big thing was every single day doing 30 multiple choice sets just to like make sure I'm seeing old stuff, because that like in my mind is you have to constantly be
Mm-hmm.
re-reviewing or you're going to get to that week of and be like, I don't know anything. So yeah, those are definitely the big points. It was just like, this works with my lifestyle and I'm getting a lot out of the amount of time I'm putting in, versus I
Right.
felt like it was the opposite before. So,
Yeah. Putting in a ton of time before,
right.
thinking maybe it was working, but turns out didn't
Right.
really retain anything,
Yep.
compared to now you can kind of prove to yourself that you're
Mhm.
retaining things because you're doing that review every single day and
Yep.
seeing your scores
Yep.
improve or finding your weak areas
Yeah,
and things like
definitely.
that. So from what I'm hearing, the biggest things for you
Mhm.
were, diving into the questions, which
Yep.
was so that you could go straight to the material you needed to know,
Right.
and then reviewing every day.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when was it hard to get into that rhythm, or was
Honestly,
it actually fairly easy?
it was easier than I expected, because I think people look at the CPA, they're like, okay, this is like a lot of information. It's hard stuff too. So it's like, am I
Mm-hmm.
really going to get like, am I going to learn it that well? You actually do learn the concepts that well. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like found that if I can do multiple choice like the back of my hand, I can do a sim and I can
Mm-hmm.
essentially like I can do the exam. If I know the material, it'll whichever way you show it to me, I'll be able to do it.
Right.
So no, it was actually easier than I expected. And I think like the explanations that come with the questions are actually really good. And I'll say like I guess one like unconventional thing I did for just harder topics, maybe in FAR or reg. I mean, we're in a era of like AI and
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT. Like I would use that sometimes, like, okay, dumb
Mm-hmm.
this explanation down for me, just like make it really easy to understand. And that just helps for like my own notes. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely like encourage people just like even use your resources that way. Like helps helps you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And honestly, like, I think most people are starting to figure that out. Like,
Right.
AI can be helpful in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I use AI for certain things, like just because the CPA
Yeah,
exam is so massive. So it's like
exactly.
to be able to remember everything, I sometimes have to refresh myself. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to say is, I'm always like a little hesitant for people to use AI because I'm
Yeah,
like, I want you to learn it yourself. But at the same
right.
time, if all you're using it for is making it so that you can understand something in your own
Right.
words, I
Exactly.
think that's a great tool.
Yeah.
Don't count on the AI to just, oh well, AI
Yeah.
gave me all this
Like they
information, and
solved this
so
problem.
I know
Like
how to
that's
do it
kind of
now.
silly. Yeah.
But instead, using it to be like, hey, this is a specific thing I don't understand. Can
Right.
you explain this part to me so that
Yeah.
the rest of this makes sense?
Yep.
I think that's a great
Exactly.
idea.
Yep.
Uh, and so you were doing that,
Hmm.
and was that all in the mornings? You were studying in the mornings
Yeah.
now?
I was studying 2 hours before work. So like 5 to 7, get ready for go to work. And then, well, and I guess another thing I did too, like I was very big on like planning every day out. So like
I
I would
remember.
start, I know it's honestly
Yeah.
psycho now that I think back, but like that's just kind of how I'm wired. So I'd be like, okay, this is exam day. Here's what you have to do every single day. But it would be like down to the questions, like
Hmm.
number of
Yep.
questions, because I would just know, like, okay, feasibly, I can't do 50 questions in a day. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, like, literally planned out every single day. And if I didn't finish my module in the morning, like, yeah, I was coming home after work and finishing it. So,
Hmm.
just like being able to, I don't know, change and pivot if
Hmm.
something with my day got thrown off. But yeah, I studied mostly in the mornings. I would say just you're more fresh. I would definitely recommend
Right.
people to do the morning.
Yeah, the mornings are a huge deal, and I do remember, I remember, like, because we actually, this is something that I have started kind of implementing in the coaching program recently, where I've had people start making their schedules,
Yeah.
because and you didn't have a problem with this because you just kind of did stuff on your own. But
Mm-hmm.
what we've noticed is a lot of people will take the pro course,
Yep.
but then they don't really apply it. Like they learn how to do it, but then they don't make a plan.
Yeah, you have a
And
plan.
so I've been having people make their schedules like, this is when you're going to wake up. This is when you're going to start, and I remember seeing yours like just super laid out
Yeah.
and super detailed. And
Yeah.
obviously it worked really well for you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
how you know that you're well, and then even baking in review days too, because like I
Hmm.
would usually give myself a full week before exam day to just re-review everything, and I would do like a unit a day and just like go all the way back through it. But like giving yourself enough time is like key, but
Hmm.
then like using your time obviously wisely is also key. So I definitely agree with like the planning your schedule and just knowing like with your lifestyle like what makes sense to get through in a day. Like I can't do
Hmm.
6 sims on
Hmm.
a Wednesday. Like it's just not, it's not feasible. So really like taking a step back of like I can do, unit 3 module 6 today. It's 30 questions. Cool. Like let's do that. But
Yeah.
being smart about it.
Yeah. I that's something that I really liked when I saw you do that. And it's somewhat similar to what I did when I was going
Mhm.
through. What I did is I just counted up all the questions that my review course had and
Exactly.
decided this is how many days I want to be done with them in, which usually it was
Hmm.
4 weeks. And I
Yep.
would just divide it by that. And that's how many questions I was trying to get through every day. And sometimes it was a little bit less, sometimes it was a
Hmm.
little bit more, but like average, that was the idea. And seems like you kind of did a
Yeah.
similar thing. Did you do something like that? Or was it
Yeah,
more
I
just
did.
like,
I did it
yeah,
more like by the units and the modules. So it'd be like, okay, I'm this week it's going to be unit 3, but like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, like each of the modules, just so like by the end of
right.
the week I'm completing, this one. But like with review courses, sometimes units are longer than others. So like, and I mean, and sometimes even the modules are longer. So you've got to
Hmm.
split that in half. It's just like really looking at every single day what I can actually get done in a day. And yes, I would load my weekends up too
Hmm.
sometimes, like just depending. But yeah, making sure you have a plan is super important, and that it kind of like is an insurance policy in a way that like when you get to exam day you would have made it through everything, so you can
Right.
be
Yep.
confident. So
Yeah. So if you follow your plan,
mhm.
you've done every question,
Yep.
you've done a review. I think figuring that out is super important.
Hmm.
And kind of talking about schedules, what was your typical day like? So you were still working. I mean, you
Yep.
obviously still are. You were
Yep.
working in audit,
Yep.
and so what did your typical day look like? You said you studied from 5 to 7, but
5 to
what did everything else
7.
look like?
I was at work then 8:30 to 9, and I will say too, or 8:30 to 9, what am I talking about, till like 5, so like a normal like 9 to 5 day, but then would come back, and just depending if I finished or not, like I would have my nights free. But if, like I said, I didn't finish it, or there was something I was confused on, like I would then kind of revisit it like right when I got home, or maybe like take a small break and like look at it. But I would say for the most part my nights were free because I was making
Awesome.
sure I was like executing in the morning. um I will say like in my review weeks I was going harder. So like I would take
Hmm.
like some days PTO even, and like just really make sure I had no, and like I will say like my work was very supportive of me passing. So like
Yeah.
that's a whole other aspect. Like they were so willing for me to take a little bit of time off to like have days to review. So that's like amazing. But yeah, I mean on my review weeks I would definitely like study longer
Hmm.
into the day. It just depends honestly. Um and weekends as well. But yeah, I would say for the most part, my nights were free, which was like great. Just
Yeah.
'cause once you're done with work, like at least for me, my brain is fried. Like I
Oh
just
yeah.
need to go
Oh
home
yeah.
and like not do
Hmm.
anything. So definitely doing your hardest stuff, like the hardest part of your day, just get it done in the morning. So that's why
Yep.
it was the best. So but yeah,
And it's so much less stressful.
yeah.
Like
Well,
I
you got it done. Like,
yeah, exactly. You're like, I did it. I don't have to worry about studying until tomorrow when I'm fresh
hmm,
again, you
yep.
know?
You just have
Uh,
to commit. Like I think that's the other thing I tell people is like if you want to do it, you have to do something every single day. Like
mhm.
even if yes, like maybe you don't finish your module or something like that, you at least did something every single day. Like there can be no days off because that's when
Right.
you just start to forget stuff, at least for me. But yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you were pretty on top of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember any times where you were inconsistent. Like any of the things that we had to work on or that you had to work on in the coaching program or just in general wasn't really the consistency. It was more
Mm-hmm.
just figuring out, changing this small thing or changing
Mm-hmm.
this small thing. And maybe we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a second. And so your days, you study in the morning, you have your nights free usually.
Yep.
What did your day look like at work? Did you do mini sessions throughout the day? How did those look?
Honestly, no. I did in the beginning listen because this was like when I was still learning the process. I was
Hmm.
listening to the audio notes, which I
Hmm.
liked. Um, I'll say as I got further in my like journey and felt like I had it down, I didn't listen to those as much. But I did the app a few times, but not as much. Honestly, I think I just like really made sure to execute on my daily session in the morning.
Right.
And then like I said too, and I can talk more about like what I did for my review week because I do think that
Yeah.
was really important. But like, yeah, just making sure I like knew what I was reviewing was the biggest part.
Right. So we'll
Mhm.
talk about your review week in just a
Yep.
second. So just to make sure I'm understanding with the mini sessions, you kind of did a little bit, mainly the
Mhm.
audio notes,
Yeah.
but your big focus was the morning sessions, which
Mhm.
I do think is kind of the base of everything. Of course, we want people to be doing the mini sessions,
Yeah.
but I would say the golden thing that people have to be doing
Yes.
in order to pass at even be close to passing is the
Right.
mornings, is
That
doing
and
those
like
2 hour sessions.
taking
Yeah,
notes too. Like I
exactly.
think
Yeah.
Nate sent one time, or it was yeah, it was one of like maybe it was in the coaching program, but one of his videos of like I use an Excel to do this. Like
Yeah.
how like that method is great because like you really have to have something to kind of show for what you did, especially when you start reviewing. Like so you can go back to it. So yeah, definitely like
Mhm.
yes, do the morning sessions, but like I also think if you're not taking notes while you're doing them,
Yeah.
that's not like you
Understanding what you're even doing.
hmm
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, we'll talk about your notes. And I remember you talked about flashcards towards the end of the coaching
Oh,
program
yep,
too, which seemed to be a big thing for you. But
yep.
first, let's talk about your review week. So
Okay,
you would get through the modules,
yep.
and then after you got through everything, you had 1 week of final review. Is that
hmm
what you typically did?
Yeah,
So what
one.
did you do during that week?
Yeah. So I really would first like take a step back and look at like kind of where sims are concentrated because I think you can kind of figure out based on at least your review course like where like you might see sims at, right? Like if
Hmm.
there's six sims in one, unit, but there's only like three in another, like okay, that one's probably more important for me to like make sure I know
Right.
how to do those. So really taking a step back first and like understanding like what do they want me to know. But then also, so what I would do is if, and I think now they're all, each exam is like 6 units in every review course, at least for Becker. I don't
I
know if
think,
that's
yeah, for the
works.
for all of them besides the disciplines, yeah, I think they're all
Oh, okay.
6 units
Yeah.
now.
So what I would do is take that week and I would say, okay, like we're doing a unit a day, like deep dive. So I would do multiple choice tests until I got an 80%. And if I like, I would just keep doing it until I like hit 80. I was like, okay,
Mm,
I'm good there. Then I would look at all the sims and like, cause I really like, I didn't do sims during my learning process. I did sims
mhm.
during that last week.
Right.
I don't know if that's just me or not, but like, I felt like I wanted to learn the material. And so once I learned the material, I could do a sim, which is true. But that week was then I would deep dive the sims for that unit on that specific day and just do them. And like
Mhm,
watch the like I would do them myself, but then I would like see what I did wrong, learn what
mhm.
I did wrong. But like
Right.
I think this is a part of the program too. Like don't overdo sims because they're not going to be the
Mhm.
same on test day. So just
Yeah.
like looking at them, I think is good to do, but I definitely didn't do every single sim in the review
Yeah.
course.
No, and I don't think that you need to, because the thing with Sims is, and I actually did something similar
Hmm.
where for me it was less about not wanting to do Sims and more just like
Yeah.
really I just could not sit there and focus for that long on the
Right.
weekends for me personally.
Yeah.
But since I knew that that was an issue for myself,
Hmm.
I purposefully gave myself 2 weeks of final review,
Got it.
and I would always do Sims every day for those 2 weeks. So I
Gotcha.
kind of like just did it all at the end, kind of like you were saying, where you didn't really do them a ton throughout the
Hmm.
process, but then you get to the end and you really start. The thing about Sims is you can, if you've done really good on the multiple choice questions and you
You can do
understand the
a
material
sim.
pretty well, you
Yeah.
can all you need to know to do with sims is be comfortable
Exactly.
figuring out a sim, like
Yeah, because
getting
they're
into
like
it and being like, this is what they're asking.
they're literally
Yeah.
like multiple choice all like lumped into one is kind of how
Mm-hmm.
I think a sim works. And so I agree with that though. It's like while you're still in that learning process, like I think it would be hard to do a sim because you're like, I haven't learned this yet. So like actually waiting to the end, I think is good because it's like, okay, I have learned the concepts. I do know the material. Now I can apply it. But again, yeah, they're never going to look the same on test day, but
Mm-mm.
just going through them and getting good at multiple choice. That's like the most important thing is how to pass
Yeah.
these is like being able to just like crank out multiple choice, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really gotten to talk to this about this very much
Mm-hmm.
yet, but you took FAR, took a
Yep.
break, started with the coaching program,
Mm-hmm.
and just so that everybody knows, how did it go with you in the coaching program? If I'm not wrong, you started with BC with us.
BC,
Was that
yep.
right?
So because
Okay,
that one was this would have been in
2023.
2023, so like November timeframe. Like I passed BC in December of 2023 and it was like
Yeah, I think
going
that's right.
away. So I was like, okay, I want to start with this one just so I can like be grandfathered in essentially and not have to do the
Yeah,
specialty.
yes,
Um
which was
so
smart if you could.
yeah,
Yeah,
everybody thought I was crazy at first. They're like, wait, you're starting with the easiest one, which actually I think BC was really hard.
I
Like
thought it was the hardest
I thought
one.
it was
That
hard.
was for me.
And so, but yeah, I started with BEC, but then I passed that one in December of 23 and I passed all four. Like I didn't fail one since like from doing super fast CPA. Like,
Really?
yeah.
Okay. That's good. For some reason I thought that you had maybe failed BEC and then you
Mm-mm.
passed it the second time, but you passed them all first try. Is that right?
Oh,
Once you started
no,
with
no,
us?
you're right. You're right. So I think in October, this might have been when I just started then
I
the
think it was like at the
program.
very
It was
beginning.
October
Yeah.
2023. I got like a
You were
73.
super close. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And then I passed it for the first time in December 2023. But like
Yeah.
after from that first pass, I didn't fail a single other one.
Yeah.
That's
And you definitely got it dialed in. Like
hmm
I knew that you were really close just,
yeah,
because you got a 73 with BEC.
right.
And honestly, like some people in the coaching program, I talk with them a lot and I work with them a lot. And then
hmm
some people in the coaching program, I'm like, you're doing amazing. Like, and
Yeah,
you were that coaching client. Like we did a few things with you, like I think we did
right.
a few assignments. We kind of
hmm
walked you through a few things, but then you just pretty much took it and
Yeah,
ran and you
I
did
think
awesome.
too. Like my first, this when I failed BC for the first time, I really think because I hadn't taken an exam since 2022, so like
Okay.
a while. I don't know, was it
Yeah.
21? I don't remember. It was a while since
At
I
least a year
failed
or
Flaw.
two.
Right, exactly. So I was just like, I don't even remember how to take the CPA exam, and I will say like it is an exam you have to learn how to take.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly,
Yep. It's a
so
skill.
it is, and so I ran out of time. Like I was going really slow on multiple choice because like I want to get all these right. I know this stuff, but then
Oh,
I like didn't have enough time for Sims. I remember that, and I was talking to a friend, which actually this is a great piece of advice. I was like, I just don't. I ran out of time. I don't know how to take it, and she was like, give yourself an hour per testlet, like because
mhm.
it's usually like two multiple choice tests, I think, and then like
Mhm.
three Sim tests,
Yes.
and so I think she says like roughly an hour per test, and she was like, and you just like you have to move on, like if you
Yeah.
flagged, two or three multiple choice, but it's at that hour mark, like put what you thought and move on. Like you have to have time for Sims to like sit there and
Yes.
think through them. So learning how to take it. And once I realized I, wasted too much time and kind of used her method of hour per testlet, then I was good from that point. But yeah.
Yeah. And time management is a huge thing. Like there's a lot of little strategies for test day.
Mm-hmm.
And time management is such a big deal because I think that a lot of the times people will either spend way too much time on the multiple choice
Exactly.
questions.
Yeah.
Actually, that's usually the problem.
Oh
Is
yeah.
usually people take up like 2 to 3 hours doing MCQs and then they only have like an hour and a
No.
half to do sims, and it's
Yeah.
like there's no way even
It
somebody
has to
who
be the
really
other way
knows what they're
around.
doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what we tell people a lot of times is exactly that. Like by the halfway mark, like
Yep.
maximum by the halfway mark, you want to be done with MCQs, hopefully before that. And then
100%.
you want to have 2+ hours for sims.
Yep.
And I think since there's 3 sim testlets, you can, 45 minutes per sim or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
sim testlet.
Yep.
But sounds like you got that figured out really
Mhm.
well. And after that, what I do remember when we were talking in the coaching program
Mhm.
that something that you talked about somewhat frequently was that a big change for you was your flashcards.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering right, like
Yeah.
what changed there?
So with flashcards, what I did was I just kind of kept a running list of things I knew I struggled with. And so I would make flashcards. And I think it depends too, I think, on the test. Like I really used flashcards during audit and reg just because they are like kind of like concept heavy in that way.
Hmm.
Not that like
Yeah.
FAR isn't, because it is, but like that's
Yeah.
more, FAR for me was more like making sure I know how to do these problems versus
Yes.
like it's less memorization. And I hate to say memorization, but just like not as concept heavy.
Hmm.
So yeah, making like flashcards of like, you know, the big like acronyms, like different frameworks, things like that. So just so things I didn't forget. But definitely like keeping a list of things that you know you struggle with. Cause I think it's like you start with this big pool of information and you've got to shrink it down to the point where you're like, a sheet of paper is like, these are the things I struggle with. That's kind of what I did with my flashcards. So like I would, once I mastered a flashcard, I'd kind of throw that out. And so I would get to, you know, test week or whatever it was and have maybe like 10 flashcards. If that, it was
Okay.
almost like
Yeah.
a process of elimination once I
Right.
was able to like cut down on things I like didn't understand. Then it was like, okay, maybe 5 things that I still
Right.
struggled with. If that, I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense, but
No,
that's
that
kind
yeah,
of
that
my
makes sense. And
approach.
was it like were they like actual flashcards? Were they in Brainscape, or was it more like notes that you said were like? I'm just curious
I
what
kind
that
of did
looked
a
like.
little bit of both. So on certain things I could fit on a flashcard, I had flashcards, but then I did kind of keep like, because in my study like giant Excel workbook, I would
Yeah.
have like a page, like a tab, right, of like
Hmm.
work on
Of those
these
running
things.
things.
Right.
Okay.
So it was kind of
Okay.
like a little bit of both. Like I did have flashcards just for like actual memorization practice, but
Hmm.
then I would keep that list and just kind of like mark them off as I felt like, all right, I got this now. Like
Right.
now it's these things. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's the exact idea behind flashcards, whether you're doing that list that you were talking about, or,
Yeah.
like actual flashcards with Brainscape or
Hmm.
physical flashcards. The idea is you're not making this running list of things that seem important or that
Yeah.
you've missed
It's
a couple times.
mastery.
It's things that you really struggle with, things
Hmm.
that you really need help with. And
Right.
then you're using that to take things from the one bucket of, I don't understand this,
Yep.
and putting it into the bucket of, I do understand this over time. And that sounds like exactly
Exactly.
what you were doing. You, as
Yep.
soon as you were like, I understand this, it wasn't in that bucket anymore. You didn't focus on it
Hmm.
anymore, at least focus on it
Yep.
heavily.
Yep. Nope. That's right. For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just how it's like the method of how you have to get through like large amounts of information, like
Exactly.
how you consume it, but then like how you continue to re-review it and get to a point of mastery on like so much stuff. So
Hmm.
that was
Right.
kind of how I did it.
And what was your timeline, if you can remind me? I mean, I
Yeah.
know that, so we were working with you in 23,
Hmm.
like October-ish, and then,
October to like December,
yeah,
yeah, 23 was BC. And I will say, like, I think I was kind of a slowpoke with the exams. Like, I liked to study for a long
you
time.
were very detailed, and
Yes.
because you wanted to make sure you passed. I
Oh, yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. I didn't want to have to do anything over again.
Hmm.
So I was like, I'm going to give myself the time. So, okay, I did BC, passed that December of 23. Then I did audit because I always took a break for busy season. You
I do
probably remember
remember
that.
that.
So
Yeah.
January to March, like I just knew there is no way. And so you guys didn't hear from me then. But then I started studying like fresh out of audit busy season for audit. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
like coming right out of busy season, like
Yeah.
that's probably a good one to do. Which actually, for all my audit people out there, like that's the one I would do like right after busy season. That's kind of
Because
what
it's
I
all
tell like my
fresh.
friends at work. It's like you do this stuff for a living, like you should start with that one. It's a confidence boost too, honestly. So yeah, I did audit. I took that one end of May 2024. So like end of
Couple months.
March,
Yeah.
April, May, I guess.
Okay.
Then I did reg and I took that one end of, I'm trying to remember. Because I do want to say I took like a little break in between on those two. I can't remember. But I think
I
I
feel
took
like you
that
had
one.
a bit like a second busy season. Is that right,
I
or is that not
don't
right?
remember, but I do think I took like I did have a second, but yeah, it was in like Q3 ish, like July August time frame. I was busy with work then. So I took reg September of 2024 past that. Then I was like, okay, I have Flaw. Flaw is the last one. Let's knock this out before busy season again. So I took
Mm-hmm.
Flaw December of 2024, got my
And
last score
got
back
that.
in January. Like I was in busy
Right.
season. I was like, because my BC would have expired this June.
Yes.
So
Oh
I
man.
was like,
Yep. So many people are struggling with that
I
right now. I'm
know.
so
And so
glad
I
that you didn't
committed
have to worry
myself.
about
I was
that.
like, studying in like that December timeframe was rough just because like work was busy, holidays, things like that. But I was like, you have to take this before busy season. Like you
Mm-hmm.
just have to. Like even if you
Yeah.
fail, it's okay. Like you'll have time to like re-review and retake, but like you've got to take it before busy season. And like thank God I passed because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm done. Like
Yeah.
so yeah, literally like my journey was all of 2024.
Yeah.
It took me
Pretty
a whole
much all of
year.
20. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you took a couple breaks.
Oh
So
yeah.
overall, maybe more like 8 or 9 months of
Yeah,
actual studying,
probably
would you
nine
say?
months of like hardcore like studying, like without breaks. Yeah, for sure.
and and I remember that, like, and I was not surprised at all when you finished. I was like, yeah, I didn't worry about you pretty much at all throughout the whole process. Whereas uh, I don't can't say the same thing about all of my coaching clients,
Gotcha.
um, but that's okay. And it's different for everybody. And the thing that I really liked seeing when you were going through it was that you were just so dedicated and
Mhm.
so on top of it. Like that's the kind of thing that if there's something that I could like tell people about,
Yeah,
like using you as an example, is the consistency, like just
yeah.
being on top of it every single day, no breaks.
I can
I think
probably
that was
like
something that was really
speak to
big.
that too a little bit because I mean
Yeah.
I think there's a thing in the coaching program that's like you fill out the page of like why do you want to do this and like that
Yes.
it's like your reminders, right? And so like for me, like being in public accounting, like CPA, like tons of CPAs at Deloitte, and like everybody has their own journey, but like I just looked at them like almost like a level above. Like they've got a license, like they can make manager. They've got
Hmm.
more like because that's something you do cap out if you don't have a CPA in public
Yep.
accounting. So it was just motivation for me of like I want to be that person where there's no limit for me. Like at that point, like I can make manager, I can make partner, I can do this, I can do that, and so I just like I was like, and people would just pass all the time, and it was like, oh, like
Hmm.
I'm gonna have my moment, like I want to be that person, but people get discouraged when they're working full time, and it's like, no, you
Hmm.
can do it. It's not going to be fun. Like you definitely have to commit and do it, but like it is so still possible. And just like the feeling of being done and like there's nothing above having a CPA. So it's like now you've got it and it just
Yeah.
unlocks a world of opportunities. And just like you work hard for what, 9 months or a year, and then that's a career
And then
full
that's
of,
it.
yeah,
Yep.
and that's it. So it's just, it was so worth it. And just now it's cool to like step back and be able to like inspire other people that like, hey, just because you didn't pass it before you started working, like doesn't mean you're out of luck,
Hmm.
like you
Yeah.
can still do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Most
seeing
people do it when they're working.
everyone around me was a huge motivation of
Yeah.
like, you should do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you said that your evenings were free. What
Hmm.
did doing it this way allow you to still do in your life? Did you still have hobbies? Did you still have
Yeah.
time with friends and family? Like, did you
Yeah.
feel
No,
like you didn't miss out
still,
too much?
I really don't think I missed out. Like, I definitely had to be disciplined of like, maybe you can't stay up as late now because
Hmm.
I'm knowing I'm going to have to get up early in the morning. But like, I was able to integrate studying like into my life. So like, I still traveled. Like, I still, it's like my family lives, a couple hours away. So like, was still able to go see them and
Hmm.
do things. I mean, I was studying around several holidays. It was able to still do those and be with family and things like that. So it's really just like making time for it. If it's like, this is a part of my daily routine, it has to happen. So like that's getting up early on trips. That's, like making sure if you aren't going to study one day, if you're out of town, like making sure you make that up, things like that. So no, I
Right.
do really feel like I was still able to um, live the same lifestyle. It was just more like, this is a non-negotiable and like,
Right.
we're gonna have to find a way to make it work. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think it like took over my life in any way where I like missed out.
Yeah.
And it was worth it. I mean, maybe a couple things here or there. I had to make like a few decisions of like, but it was all worth it. Like I had a goal in mind, and like now, I don't have to make those decisions. So
Yeah.
short time suffering, long time payoff is what I would
Yeah.
tell myself.
Oh yeah, for sure. And do you have your license by now? Like,
Yep.
is that
Yep.
okay? Awesome,
Yeah. So
awesome.
I'd passed, like I said, in January, finished busy season, but then like submitted all my stuff like with state of Missouri, like right after busy season. So,
So like Marchish or
yep.
something. Okay,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, and a couple, like one more, like kind of big question. So
Hmm.
like I was kind of saying throughout this interview, you were somebody in the coaching program who really took it and just ran with it and did really well on your own. Uh, but I still want to hear, why did you feel that the coaching program was worth it in the end? At the beginning
Yeah.
you said you wanted it for accountability, but
Hmm.
what did the coaching program give you that helped you make it through all this?
I think it helped me execute on the method itself because I will say, like, it is I don't know how to like word it, but like, it's a different type of study method. Like, when I've
Hmm.
told people how I studied and passed, they're like, oh, I could never do that. Like, you didn't watch a single video, you didn't like read the book, I'm like, you didn't do Sims. I'm like, no, like, not really. And so it's unconventional. That's what I was looking
Hmm.
for.
Yeah.
It's definitely an unconventional study method. And so, having the coaching program to actually learn how to do it and then execute it. I think if I didn't have the coaching, I would have maybe like 50% done the method or,
Hmm.
and I think too, like
Yeah.
having the coaching is like when something does go wrong or you're confused or something's not working, not clicking, like you have people to help you work through it who've done
Hmm.
it, who know the method. So it was just like, this can't fail because I have people to help me if I do struggle.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think I did take to it pretty well on my own,
Yeah.
but just kind of knowing I had a safety net of like, if I do have an issue or something, or I'm like really not getting this, like I had
Yeah.
people to talk to. Um, but yeah, I do think the coaching is like integral for making sure you get the method down,
Hmm.
so that you're able to then go do it on your own.
Yeah. I remember that, like at the beginning, you had that BEC score of 73,
Hmm.
and I remember that you were just like, there was just like a couple things that we talked about. I think we
Yep.
maybe did like one show me assignment or something
Yep.
like that. Like we really, and by the way, I guess for people listening to the podcast, show me assignments in the coaching program are where we have our coaching clients record themselves studying so that we can
Mhm.
give them tips and be like, hey, this is less effective, or hey, yeah, this is great. And I think we only did like one or two of those with
Yeah.
you, and just
Yep.
from that you were able to be like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do now.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I wish I loved that was the case.
Hmm.
But honestly, I mean, I don't I don't think I really have too many other questions. I mean,
Okay.
your process was pretty straightforward once you got it
Yeah.
figured out.
No, for
And
sure.
what before I ask, the final question, is there
Hmm.
any other part of your process that, before we started the call, you were thinking, I hope I get to talk about this? Is there anything else that you want to share about your
Yeah.
process before we finish up?
No, I think I hit on it. Like, executing the daily sessions is super important just for the learning process itself. But then, like, making sure you have a good review week is also so important because I think like the distance I made probably in just that week, like if I wouldn't have had it, I don't know that I
Hmm.
would have passed some of them. So just
Right.
like really stressing that. And it's hard to re-review for like comprehensive exams like this, but like splitting it up and
Hmm.
just tackling it that way. And but yeah, I really think those are probably the two biggest, and just kind of like tone out the noise, like really stick to the method. Like, don't think that because somebody else is watching videos or doing this, that like what you're doing is wrong. Like, I think you just have to commit to this process. And if you
Hmm.
do it, I promise it works. Like, I would not have passed any other way.
Hmm.
Um, Especially working full time, but honestly, not working full time. Becker didn't work for me
Yeah.
when I
it,
was
did,
just a
it didn't
student.
work
So,
either.
like, just really,
Yeah.
like, I just encourage people, like, this method really does work. And if you go into it 100%, you will have good results. So,
Awesome. And that's fairly similar to, actually, I did just remember one more question because we
mhm.
didn't really get to talk about this, because you said you kind of mentioned it, and this might feel like we're kind of going backwards, but what was your how did you learn when you were going through the questions in the morning? Like you kind of said you had a process
Yeah.
for learning from the questions, so what
Right.
did
So
that
I
look
would
like?
just like I would like read the question, and then a lot of the time, like I just didn't know what the answer was, so I would guess, and then like it was most of the time wrong. But that's when you
Yeah.
read the
But it doesn't
explanation.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you read the explanation, you really like pull the key concepts out of that answer, because some of those are like pretty lengthy answers, but it's like, okay, what does this want me to know? And then like that's when you like note take of like, okay, if it's some, you know, I'm going to use like reg as an example, but if it's like some, you know, tax, you know, code or acronym, whatever,
Tax
it's like,
law or
okay,
tax rule.
tax law,
Yeah.
whatever, you know, jot that down. Cause like, that's what it's asking you questions
Mm-hmm.
on, is like that piece of like the tax law. And so then you go to the
Yes.
next question and it's like pulling out the key concept from that explanation. But then it's like, as you're doing questions, you're like, oh, like I already know that, you know, acronym to help me answer these other questions. It's just like, I feel like the questions themselves are like very similar and just asked in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same concept. So like coming out of a module, it's like I was supposed to learn this and I got
Yeah.
that concept. And then like you go to the next one, you're like, okay, all these 30 questions were geared towards this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of being able to like go through that explanation and pull out the key information is how
Yeah.
I did it. If that
Exactly.
makes sense.
And that's exactly what we try to teach, like the pillar topics, if you remember that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like you're going to naturally, as you're going through the
Mm-hmm.
questions, notice, yeah, like you said, like the one, two, maybe 4 or 5 things over the
Yeah.
course of those questions that, even though it was 30 questions, really all of them touched on a
Yeah.
few different things,
And
and
you'll
you just pull
see
out that
things
concept.
too. I think
Yeah,
people think that's
exactly.
harder than what it is, but like really, if you are just reading the questions, like you will see themes with them, and
Yep.
you'll be like, "Oh, they want me to know this
Yep.
thing." So when you remember that, that's how you know then how what they're going to ask on the exam. Because like I don't think Becker would just want you to know so much about this one thing if it wasn't going to be on there, kind of thing. So just like really like listening to the course in a way, and like I don't think that they do things necessarily by accident. Like if there's
Hmm.
3 or 4 sims and two units about it, it's probably important. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that's
No, it's it's
right.
it's it's all with a purpose.
Mhm.
The like kind of along that with like I've been making walkthrough videos for the
Mhm.
different exams, and I'll like learn from the AICPA questions and things like that.
Nice.
And yeah, it's like always shocking. Like you look at a blueprint topic, but then you
Mhm.
actually go through the questions, and it's
Yeah.
like super heavily focused on one
One
piece
thing.
of that
Mhm.
blueprint topic, even though you think you need to know
Yeah.
everything else. And that's
Right.
what you learn from doing the questions, is you learn what
Exactly.
is actually most important.
Versus watching the videos where it's like, oh,
Hmm.
this whole chapter is important. It's like, no, the whole chapter
Yeah.
really like isn't going to be tested. It's like 5 things
Yeah.
from that chapter. So I
Exactly.
wouldn't have seen that though without Superfast CPA, because you guys teach to find those key things and then
Hmm.
focus on those and really learn it. It's
Hmm.
just a whole different way, but it makes so much
Yeah.
sense. Like once you learn how
Once
to
you do
study
it.
that way,
Yep.
once you do it, yeah, it makes so
Yeah.
much sense. So
Exactly. And I totally agree with that, obviously. So it's been awesome talking to you, Katie. Especially since you were in the coaching program, it was really cool to hear from you.
yeah.
Uh, just to finish things out, even if it's something we've talked about throughout this interview, what would be your top 2 or 3 tips that you would give to people still going through the process?
I'd say first one, execute daily. Have to do daily re-review. That's how you retain information. Two would be have a really good review, like lined up. Have a
Hmm.
good plan that you're going to stick to. Um, and then three, I would just say like be consistent and don't get discouraged. I mean, it's like a hard, it's
Hmm.
so hard, and it's a long time. But like just knowing that like there is going to be an end and like you're going to get there, but you've got to do everything in between to get to that point.
Hmm.
So that'd probably be my big things.
Those are great tips. And again, I think those kind of summarize a lot of what you embodied in going through this. So thank you for sharing those. And thanks for being on the call today, Katie. It was awesome
Yeah,
talking to you. And I hope you have an awesome day. And congrats on being done.
thank you. Yeah, this is great. Thanks, guys.
All right, that was the interview with Katie. And again, she did exceptional. She was a really awesome coaching client. Again, she was one of those coaching clients that once we kind of helped her tweak some things, she pretty much just went with it and was able to do it almost all on her own. She was really good at the whole process. And again, I think she's a great example of consistency. She was extremely consistent, extremely regimented, extremely detailed, And that helped her so much in getting this process down and in passing the CPA exams. So follow Katie's example and be totally consistent, and you'll start seeing a lot of improvement as well. Now, before you go, again, make sure you check out our Superfast CPA training webinar on SuperfastCPA.com. That is 1 hour that will save you months of struggling with the exams. So check that out, and also check out becoming a Superfast CPA Pro member, because Pro members get access to the full versions of our multiple choice question walkthrough videos. Those are on YouTube, but the full versions are for Pro members. So if you like the ones on YouTube, you can get more of it by becoming a Pro member. I'm sure you liked this episode with Katie. If you liked it, make sure to like it and leave a comment in the YouTube video, or leave a rating in your favorite podcast app. Thanks for watching or listening, and I will see you in the next episode.